This is Brian, screenfiles.com and review. And what I'm looking at today is 1979 Spontaneous Combustion, directed by Tobe Hooper. Any director that's directed enough movies and television shows develops a style that's unique to them. Now, as much as I think Zack Snyder is a mediocre director and a terrible writer, but that's neither here nor there, I'd be lying if I said that his movies didn't have a distinctive look and feel that was all his own. For instance, he very often uses slow motion to emphasize dramatic moments. It's one of the things that makes Zack Snyder, visually speaking, unique. Another instance from another director is J.J. Abrams, who loves lens flare. If you've seen the Star Trek movies directed by him, there's lens flare all over the place. It tends to give his movies a certain vitality, a certain feel of liveliness. So much so, in fact, that it's almost a cliche when you talk about J.J. Abrams and lens flare. What does this have to do with Tobe Hooper? From watching a number of his movies, some of them recalled from the past, he has less a visual sense of things than a way of interpreting things on screen, which is a way of saying that Tobe Hooper's movies, from a narrative standpoint, tend to be very chaotic. If you look at the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you look at Spontaneous Combustion, if you look at other movies that he's done, they tend to be, I don't want to call them messy, but very almost cinema verite in the way they approach events on screen. It's almost as if they're disorganized. They're not, because I honestly don't think you can make a movie that's disorganized. In the sense that you have the person who shoots it, you have editors, you have writers, and so on and so forth, that can force a movie into a particular shape. But that being said, Tobe Hooper's movies tend to have an element of chaos to the narrative. And this brings me to Poltergeist, which is the most un-Tobe Hooper movie directed by Tobe Hooper. Now let's be clear, I still think Tobe Hooper directed that movie, but I'm not at all sure after seeing Spontaneous Combustion, because Spontaneous Combustion is a very more typical Tobe Hooper movie, much more so than Poltergeist. And it makes me think that maybe, just maybe, Steven Spielberg or someone else had a greater hand in that movie than they're being given credit for. Does that mean that Tobe Hooper didn't direct it? Not necessarily. But it does mean that Spielberg had more say than someone who is an executive producer typically does. Because, having seen numerous Tobe Hooper movies at this point in my life, you cannot tell me that there's not something off about Poltergeist. It's a great movie, by the way, but it's great in ways that Tobe Hooper movies typically aren't. From its narrative to the way it's edited to its structure, it is a better movie than anything Tobe Hooper has made. I'm totally serious about this. It is weird how good Poltergeist is compared to anything else Tobe Hooper has done. Which tells me, as I said, there's something more to Poltergeist, which gives credence to the idea that while he may have indeed directed the movie, Steven Spielberg had much more say in matters than we know up to this point. And in reference to Spontaneous Combustion, as I said, this is more typical Tobe Hooper. And this movie is a mess. And he not only directed it, he co-wrote it. So there's even more accountability as far as that goes. And it is such a strange movie. Though strange in a sense that this is more Tobe Hooper than Poltergeist. Spontaneous combustion revolves around an experiment by the United States military to develop a serum that protects against the effects of radiation. And to do that, they had a couple exposed to a nuclear bomb going off. Not in their immediate vicinity, because that would vaporize them, but close enough that they would be exposed to the radiation, but not get a lot of the heat and force. So the couple survives, and the Army thinks that their experiment went well. And they eventually had a child. Now the thing is, we don't know how long this woman was pregnant. I don't recall her being pregnant, and it's not something the movie dwells on, which is to say, we meet the couple, they're part of this experiment, and later on we see that they're due to have a child. Though there's a problem, namely, they burst into flame, spontaneous combustion. We don't know why this is happening, though it's pretty obvious that the injection to prevent radiation from killing you did not quite work as planned. And in any case, the couple's dead, and they take the baby and have someone raise him. Flash forward a few decades, and that baby, Sam, is played by Brad Dourif, who voices Chucky in the Child's Play movies. And he is not what I would like to call a very sympathetic character. Brad Dourif is a great character actor, as far as I'm concerned, but he always appears slightly off, which is to say, there always seems to be something wrong with him, something sinister going on with this guy. So, strange things revolving around fires starting in his vicinity start to happen. And we eventually learn that Sam is being taken care of medical-wise by Dr. Marsh, played by John Cypher, which has to be the best name ever. It's an awesome name. And it is also revealed that the Army is aware of what's going on with people bursting into flames. And it's trying to cover its tracks, because this is a circumstance that is beyond its control, and it does not think that their experiment is a success by any stretch of the imagination. So therefore, they're working to get rid of these people when their abilities begin to manifest. Spontaneous combustion reminds me somewhat of David Cronenberg's Scanners, except that Scanners is less chaotic. And structurally, from just the way the movie is assembled, it works a lot better. So in any case, Sam is beginning to display abilities that are just freaky. But the thing is, they are less spontaneous combustion than pyrokinesis. For instance, if he gets angry at someone, they can potentially burst into flames. He's being devoured by his abilities as well, but it also affects people around him. In fact, he can be on the phone with you and cause you to burst into flame if he's pissed off or whatever, or if he's feeling frustrated at the time, which he does to an engineer at a radio show he was on the phone with. I'm really shocked that spontaneous combustion was ever made into a movie in the first place. The writing is just weird. It's not necessarily even bad. It's just very strange. And the movie itself is just bonkers. That this was actually financed is just remarkable to me. I don't understand how this made it through the studio process, but it did. And it's interesting, though it goes to the point I made earlier. This is quite unlike anything that you're going to get from any other director but Tobe Hooper, which is interesting, but at the same time invites questions about movies like Poltergeist. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.